What, the timing working stuff or what?
I'm going to ask him a question about religion. Scott, ask him about religion and how that fits in.
It's a series of stimuli and responses that have been rewarded over the centuries.
Professor Skinner, this is Art Bedeian calling. We certainly appreciate your willingness to spend a few minutes with us this afternoon. Great. I'm here with about 14 PhD students, and they're all sitting around my office in chairs and on the floor, and they're from psychology, management, marketing, speech, and dairy science. And what I'd like to do is put you on the speakerphone, and each student, they have plenty of questions, and what generally we've done in the past is each student has identified themselves and has asked a question that has been on their mind relative to the particular ideas of the person that we've been studying. And today we've just seen one of your films and of course have done some of your readings. 1 second. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. We're on the speakerphone, and what I'd like to do is to ask one of our first students to come up and ask a question by identifying himself. So who would like to be first? Go ahead, Paul.
Professor Skinner, my name's Paul Bush. I'm in management, but I've got a question for you that really has nothing to do with management or psychology. I understand that you graduated from college and were considering creative writing as a career.
That's right.
And had stories reviewed by Robert Frost.
That's right.
I'm interested to know that if at this stage of your career, do you have any second thoughts about your road not taken?
Supposing Frost, of course. No, I think I took the right road. I took the other road for a while, and after about a year, I decided there's just one thing wrong. I knew how to write, but I didn't have anything to say. And I was quite lucky because it was in looking at an old literary magazine called The Dial that I saw a review by Bertrand Russell of Ogden and Richards' The Meaning of Meaning. And Russell said, the reader will see that I have been much impressed by Dr. Watson. And that was John B. Watson, and I very soon took Russell's advice from that and got Watson's book, and I became an instant behaviorist.
Next question.
Hello, this is Andy Mybaum. I'm a PhD student in IO psychology. For the past couple of weeks, we've been studying motivation, and I was wondering if I were a manager and trying to get an employee to do something, how would I know what would make him do what I wanted?
Well, I don't like the concept of motivation particularly. You can get effects which would be attributed to motivation just by scheduling reinforcers in an effective way. If you go to Las Vegas and watch the hundreds of people there standing all night long pulling the levers on slot machines, you see there's something called motivation, but it doesn't mean that they need money. Some of them may be quite wealthy. It doesn't mean that they're earning a living this way, because they all eventually lose, of course, or Las Vegas wouldn't be as rich as it is. It's all a schedule of reinforcement. And that works just as much on a pigeon or a rat as it does on a person. It's a variable ratio schedule. It's the heart of all gambling devices. And I wouldn't want to attribute any of that to motivation. It doesn't matter very much how hungry the animals are. The schedule is enough to do it. Another schedule that works is so-called fixed ratio, which is at the heart of piece rate pay, and that is so potent in getting people to work hard that people interested in labor don't like to see it used. So I think very much more is to be found in the payoff, in the schedule of payoff, than in something called motivation.
Thank you.
Dr. Skinner, my name's Chuck Nielsen. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Marketing.
Yes?
I've just written a paper which investigated a technique called psychohistory, which is, as you may know, applies the precepts of psychoanalytic
I know
theory
Eric Erickson.
to the historical study. Yes. It provokes me to wonder, is there some relationship or fusing or integration of psychoanalytic theory and behaviorism?
Well, I don't see very much. I think that psychoanalysis, if you mean the pure Freudian psychoanalysis, the whole notion that you're dredging up what is really important out of the unconscious is, I think, silly. All behavior is unconscious. Animal behavior is unconscious, human behavior is unconscious until we've been taught to look at what we're doing. People say, why did you do that? What were you doing now? And so on. And then for the first time in the history of the world, human people, the human species, began to look at themselves, and their behavior then became conscious. And of course, the things that remain in our unconscious are the things that tend to be punished, and that's why they're down there. And so then when you tease them out by, as a psychoanalyst does, by being a non-punisher, out they come, and they tend to be a bit of murder here, and the father, and a bit of sex there with the mother, and so on. These are things people have been punished for, and that's why they've been driven into the unconscious. But that doesn't mean that they are the essence of human behavior. I think that they're there because they're not acceptable to society, rather than, and I think the person that you see every day is as close as one can come to saying what the real person really is.
Thank you.
Dr. Skinner, my name is Scott Julian. I'm a PhD student in management. My question does not concern management, however. How is religion viewed in the behavioristic framework?
Well, I'm not religious myself. I've been very much interested in religion. I've talked at length with the people at the divinity school here. I've just completed 2 years of weekly interviews with someone writing a book on my views on religion. We've recorded about 100 hours of discussion on this. I'm very much interested in the recent work of Dr. Elaine Pagel, the divinity professor at Princeton, on the Gnostic Gospels and so on. I don't believe any form of religion. I think that I think you can give reasons why cultures have always had religions, and why they have always treated certain things such as death, birth, and that kind of thing very seriously in that way. I think you can say that many religions have done wonderful things for the world, but I think the present 20th century religions are doing a great deal of damage. If you look at North Ireland and what's going on in the Middle East and so on, there's a great deal to be explained and accounted for by those who feel that religious views are the best way. I would like very much to be able to thank someone for good fortune. I would like very much to be able to ask someone for help if my children were in a dangerous situation, for example. I see the importance of doing that, but I just don't think there is anyone to ask for help or anyone to give thanks to. I was a very close friend of a nun who was the originator of the Sister Formation movement, and I learned that she was dying in the hospital in Minneapolis, and I tried to call her and they wouldn't put me through, and I wrote to her, and it just happened that their operation was postponed a few hours for some reason, so my letter arrived, and I ended it by saying, it is at times like these that one wishes one could pray. And she went into the operation and died. Those are the last words she heard. I'm not opposed to religion, but I just see no place for it in my own life.
Thank you. We've got two people fighting over who's going to be first to ask the next question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
We've got two people fighting over who's going to be next to ask the
Oh,
next
I
question.
see. Well, I'll have to take whoever wins.
Dr. Skinner, this is Roger Griffith. I have a PhD in experimental psychology, and I wondered if there's any truth to the rumor that you invented the Skinner box because you got tired of walking down to the end of the T maze to retrieve the rat in the goal box.
Now, wait a minute. Which Skinner box are you talking about?
The bar.
The rat box and pigeon box and so on?
Yeah, the pigeon box.
I also invented the thing to take care of my second daughter, and
That's right.
somebody called that a box, and immediately the people thought I was experimenting on her, as I certainly wasn't.
No, I was thinking.
I think I've talked about this sort of thing in the second volume of my autobiography. I certainly invented a great many things to save my own trouble and save my labor and so on. But it was a series of very happy accidents, and I think it turned up an unusual measure of behavior, which was just what was needed to put a good many issues on a solid footing.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Skinner, I have read a lot of your work over the years, and I must say that I hope it will give you reinforcement for me to say that I find your views the only ones of psychology that make any sense to me.
I'm sorry, this isn't coming through very clearly. Would you try that again, please?
I don't know if I can say it again, but I would like for you to know my name is Marion Fletcher, and I'm on the faculty here with Dr. Bedeian.
Yes?
And I have, over the years, read a great amount of your work, and it is, as far as I'm concerned, the only view of psychology that makes any sense. I hope you will find that to be reinforcing.
Oh, it is, yes, indeed.
Now I have a question for you. I recently was reading something by Professor Wilson, who you know has done work in criminology.
Oh, James Q. Wilson.
Yes.
Yes, he wrote a book along with my colleague Richard Herrnstein.
Yes, a very impressive book, I believe. Would you agree with the point made in that book that there is a separate thing called a conscience in people, and that it is formed through reinforcement?
Well, that's the kind of thing that I don't know very much about. It would be very foolish of me to say that anything of that kind is true or false. I do not neglect genetic contributions to behavior. I've written a good many papers about what is called ethology as well as operant behavior, and I have no doubt at all that we are born slightly different in various ways, and that contingencies that would make me a criminal are not the ones that would make someone else a criminal, and so on. Now, I don't know whether that's exactly an answer to your question, but I know my colleague feels very strongly about IQ. I don't really know what the current status of the data are on that, but I see no reason why I cannot accept, like anyone else, a genetic contribution to many aspects of behavior.
Let me follow up here. My question had to do with the conscience. Some things are morally wrong. Do you think that there is a conscience? If you do you think it would be formed by reinforcement, as I do?
You mean, you're talking about a conscience?
Yes.
Oh, well, I think that's, the word conscience is made up from two Latin words, which means to know along with someone. It's what you know that you learn from other people. And I naturally discard any effort to find something inside a person that explains that behavior, that I have to turn around and find out why it's got inside. I don't think that you do things because you're intelligent. I think you're intelligent because of what has happened to the species and to you in your past history. I don't think you do what you do because of your personality. I have to explain your personality, or does it get to be as it is? So every one of these internal determinants of behavior have to be explained in turn, and you turn out explaining them in terms of the history of the species and the history of the individual. So I don't want to stop in the middle. I want to go all the way through to what are the original initiating causes.
Thank you.
Dr. Skinner, this is Scott Julian again. You speak of a genetic endowment. Do you feel that within this endowment is contained any personality or temperamental traits?
I don't think you need to define something as a personality. Anything more than you don't need. I don't think you even need to define something as a memory. Operant conditioning changes the individual, and the individual changes survives as a changed individual. I don't think it stores memories and brings them back again when you respond later on. And the same thing would be true of things like personality, character, all sorts of traits of character, the things that are measured by various tests and so on. Introversion, extroversion, and all the rest. Before they are fully explanatory, you have to explain them. And that's what I'm interested in.
Good afternoon, Professor Skinner. My name is Mitch Griffin. I'm a PhD student in marketing. Read about your punishment and how you feel negatively towards punishment and call it just a short-term situation. What about in advertising, where a company Crest, the punishment is tooth decay if you don't use their product, and they've done quite well over the long run compared to companies that try to use positive reinforcement in their advertisement? Would you say that in advertising that the same kind of rewards hold true?
Are you telling me now that since companies have got along so well with one kind of thing, they don't want to change to another? I think I missed the point of your question.
My question is that you can approach, if you approach an advertising, I said like where Crest toothpaste, I say they would stress the negative reinforcement or punishment of tooth decay if you don't purchase their product. And they've done that as a long-term kind of thing.
Well, long-term things are not reinforcing. That's the trouble with them. You have to verbalize the thing, and it's the verbal reinforcement that really matters. I still don't know what. Give me an example of what would happen. Is it something that an advertising company would do, preparing advertising for a company?
I'm having a. Let me ask this question: if a manager's in a position where what he's concerned about is short-term motivation, or let's don't use the term motivation, but in short-term action, and we say that punishment, you would agree, is effective in short-term situations?
Well, punishment is very hard to understand, really. I just don't think it suppresses behavior. I think it creates conditions from which you escape by doing something else instead. Since a student of mine has been working with very severely autistic people, I've had more or less to agree that he should be allowed to use a bit of punishment, but I'm very unhappy about it all because I don't believe that is really the case. And I think as soon as you give up punishing, then you turn to much more effective techniques. I was recently involved in getting the bill passed in California to forbid paddling students. I had to help get it out of committee, and I had to write and telephone the legislature, and finally somebody took a letter of mine in and gave it in person, handed it to the governor so he'd sign the bill. And I'm really got to be doing. I'm sure a lot of teachers are going to have a damn hard time because they have people there with very little cultural background, and helping them is one way to get them to work until, of course, they then leave school early, and that's the end of it. But I think if they stop that, they will begin to look at better ways of getting students to come to school and study and learn something.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Skinner. My name is Mike Gocher, and I'm a PhD student in speech. And I have a question for you concerning the use of operant conditioning and a manager. Like, what should be the primary qualities of an effective manager?
An effective what? A manager?
An effective manager, yes, sir.
Well, you wonder how he would more effectively use speech in dealing with people?
No, I would say how to use operant conditioning in the workplace.
In the workshop? Well,
That's
that's
good.
a very practical kind of thing and not a theoretical one. I have written, as you may know, a book on verbal behavior, and I'm still interested in that field, but I don't know the situation in the workshop well enough to suggest any direct application of it at the moment. Sorry about that.
We've read a newspaper article, Dr. Skinner, about your own work habits and the environment that you've created for yourself in the basement of your home. And this brings up something in my mind that's very popular in the management literature today. It's called self-management or self-leadership. Do you see this as an extension of operant conditioning, where people actually are conditioning their own behaviors and taking on the role of self-controller? You talk
I don't think it's quite right to call it conditioning your own behavior. What you do is get yourself into positions where your behavior does have reinforcing consequences, and where it is not punished. Dr. Vaughan and I wrote a book called Enjoy Old Age, which is more or less out of my own experience. I have just created a world in which I am more likely to write the kinds of things I think are most important for me to be writing right now, and I'm at this very moment violating that, because one of the things I should do is refuse to take on these programs and go and talk to people, because my work tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock in the morning will probably suffer a little bit from the energy I'm putting out right now. But I've cut out a great many things from my life, and it's worked much better because it gives me a chance to do the kinds of things that are reinforced, not by me, but by the natural consequences.
How does your family react to your work habits, waking up an hour during the night and getting up so early and whatnot?
Well, I just sleep by myself, so I don't work like my wife. At my age, 84, my wife is 77, you find that you don't sleep just steadily all night long. We found we're waking each other up, so we sleep in different beds, and that solves that problem. And as a matter of fact, I sleep now in my study, so because I get up also and do 1 hour in the middle of the night. But you could develop a very steady circadian rhythm, and it's marvelous. I highly recommend it if you can do it. Of course, at your age right now, you can't do this because there are too many other things in your lives to prevent a rhythm of that kind. But my wife and I live a very steady kind of day. I go to bed early, and I wake up and put in an hour in the middle of the night, and I don't need much sleep. Old people don't need much sleep. 5-6 hours is all I need in a night. I get in 3 good hours of work before 7 o'clock in the morning, and that's my day. That's my main productive day as a scholar. And the mornings I go to my office and answer mail, see people, and so on. Afternoons I listen to music, or on an off day I talk to students, as I'm doing now, and then I keep myself in condition so that tonight at 12 o'clock I'll be in good form. Having a circadian rhythm that solves one problem that you all, I'm sure, have faced: how to get down to work. If you do it this way, you just naturally get down to work at a given time. There's no problem of starting. You just naturally start.
One final question, and hopefully we haven't overstayed our welcome. As someone who now can look back upon such a distinguished career, talking to a group of people who are hopefully beginning distinguishing careers, can you give them any type of career advice?
Well, I just did in a way, because I think the main thing is to look at yourself as you look at a pigeon or a white rat or a monkey or a human child or a disturbed boy or something, whatever, and arrange a world in which that individual is most likely to do the kinds of things that will be directly reinforcing to him or her, and then eventually achieve the kind of fame that gives you a sort of pseudo reinforcement later. People say, "Oh, isn't it wonderful that you get nominated for this, that, and the other thing?" No, the real reinforcers occur at my desk when a sentence comes out right, or when I struggle with a problem and I suddenly see. I'm doing a book now on the ethics for the future, and again and again and again, I find myself in a state very much like the last couple of paragraphs of a detective story. It all comes out right, and it's terribly reinforcing. Much more so than getting an honor or an honorary degree or something like that. Because it's immediate. That's the main thing. You look for the immediate satisfactions, not the long-term ones.
Well, we can't thank you enough for spending this time with us. It's certainly been very reinforcing for us, and we indeed hope we haven't limited your productivity tomorrow morning too much.
I've enjoyed it, and I won't be swearing at you if I'm not working well tonight.
We'd like to express our appreciation.
Very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Bye. Well,